Brought to you by ExpressCare Health and Skin Center. Get in, get out, get better.
Welcome back to Healthy Living. If you're just tuning in, we are talking how sweet is too sweet. And Dr. Jitka is telling us a little bit more about artificial sweeteners. And now she's ready to answer some of our viewers' questions. All right, so our first viewer is asking, what is stevia and how does it vary from other sugar sweeteners?
So stevia, it comes from a plant. It is a natural sweetener that has very few calories. It's super sweet. It's about 600 times as sweet as regular table sugar. So you need very, very little. So you can use it as a substitute for your coffee or tea. You can also use it for baking, and it will sweeten your goods. The good part is that it won't give you extra calories. It does have a little bit of an aftertaste that takes a while to get used to. Not everybody likes it. But for those who have a sweet tooth, it's a good way to minimize your calories.
All right. Now, is it true that honey can never go bad?
That is true. In fact,
Wow.
they found honey in the ancient Egyptian tombs that was sealed, and it was still okay. So
Wow.
thousands of years old. And that's for a number of reasons. First of all, honey doesn't have any water in it. It's very, very dense, so it can't spoil. Then it's got the bees produce some hydrogen peroxide in it that also keeps it as preserved. So you can keep honey, you don't have to keep it in the fridge, you can keep it on the shelf, and it will last for a very, very long time.
I wonder if it gets stronger. You know how when things ferment, it gets stronger. So I wonder if it has kind of like the same process in fermenting.
Well, sometimes honey will have, you'll see it crystallize a little bit. It'll change over time because, again, of our humidity and some water content that may be there. But you can still leave it. It won't go bad.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, our next viewer wants to know more about honey and is asking, is there such a thing as queen bee honey? And if so, is it sweeter than regular honey?
Queen bee honey, it's a marketing thing. You know, of course, there are queen bees, but the worker bees make the honey. And there's something also called royal jelly that the worker bees use to create new queen bees. So that's also sold as a supplement, and it's not sweet at all. It's just like a health food supplement. But so honey is honey is honey. There are different kinds of honey depending on the fruit and the flowers that the bees have pollinated. So there are degrees of sweetness and flavor, but overall it's still sucrose, same as your table sugar.
Okay. Now, speaking of honey, what about things like syrup? You know, because like they have maple syrup, they have all these different types of syrups.
Yes, so maple syrup is also sucrose, but it's, is it healthier? No, it's just different, and it's a different flavor. As far as syrups that you might just get, like Aunt Jemima, or the syrup that you get in King's or Shirley's, those ones are high fructose corn syrups usually, and again, high level of sucrose in those ones, very, very unhealthy in large amounts for your poor liver that suddenly has to deal with this massive sugar load. So if you eat a lot of sugar, the problem, what is the problem? The problem is that you're loading up your liver. It suddenly has to deal with a large load of calories, and what it will do is store it as fat inside your liver, and then that damages your liver, and you get a lot of other health effects, like, of course, gaining weight.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen those commercials about it contains high fructose syrup, or
high fructose corn syrup.
So don't eat it. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
But in moderation.
Of course, everything in moderation's okay. But these days, I think the statistics are that the average American eats something like 20 teaspoons of sugar a day. That's like how much they intake. So that's extreme. Your poor body isn't made for that.
Yeah. All right. Now getting back to our questions, our next viewer is asking, I've seen commercials about how corn syrup is good. Is this true?
Well, again, maybe in moderation, small amounts, not to be an extremist, but really you should try to obtain flavor from your foods, eating fruits and vegetables, and maybe flavoring it a little tiny bit with some sugar or syrup or maple syrup. In small amounts it's okay. What's not okay is taking your iced tea and dumping the half of the container of the syrup.
I think I'm guilty
at the
of
restaurant
that because it doesn't melt fast enough. So
Right.
I might be guilty of that.
Yeah. So changing your taste buds takes time, and sugar is really very highly addictive. So you have to be aware of that. It's just the sugar talking. That's the problem with the artificial sweeteners. Stevia actually can be a little bit protective against diabetes, but the other sweeteners like aspartame, equal, those type of things, actually kind of prime your brain to want more sugar, and so you'll end up probably heading more towards diabetes than not if you use artificial sweeteners.
Okay,
so it's just sort of adjusting your taste buds, which takes a little bit of time, maybe about a month of reducing your sugar, being aware of it, and you'll get there.
Okay, now speaking of stevia and equal, our next viewer is asking, what sweetener is the best to use for tea or coffee?
Well, again, a small amount of anything you like, the keyword being small, maybe a half teaspoon of some sugar or, your artificial sweetener, but very, very little. That's really the goal.
Yeah, and I always see them, they come in those little packets.
Yeah, and the packet, you don't need the whole packet. That's extremely sweet, so just a very little tiny bit.
Okay. Now, our next viewer is asking, can people have allergic reactions to artificial sweeteners?
Yeah, it's uncommon, but you can. Sometimes people will switch them around a little bit, but you can develop itchiness in your mouth and actually rashes from artificial sweeteners.
Wow, I never knew that.
You can.
Wow. Okay. Now, speaking of allergic reactions or reactions to sweeteners, when you give children sweets, or what they go on this sugar high. What is a sugar high?
What is a sugar high? Well, it's euphoria, because what happens is, suddenly you have this, like Halloween, right? Suddenly you have a huge load of sucrose, which does light up the same part of the brain, the frontal lobes, this happiness center, the same part that a drug does, like, for example, cocaine. It lights that up in your brain. The problem is that you have a big high, and then of course we all know the crash when the kids are very cranky and unhappy.
Yes.
So, and also sleepy. Because so you have to be aware of that. These foods create a chemical reaction in your bodies, particularly in your brain. Sugar has a very strong effect, temporarily making you happy, then making you crash. So, and it has these addictive properties. So being aware of that is really helpful, especially when you're raising kids.
All right, thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Doc, for your expertise. Now, if there is something that